talking about how strip clubs work, how they are kind of fucked up, and how we are going to change them. So I've worked in strip clubs in Philadelphia for about 5 years. I worked in a lot of clubs, so I kind of know like what's going on in most of them, and also I'm connected to strippers across the country and know what's happening nationwide. So strip clubs, we're going to start with just how they work. Most of us are classified as independent contractors, but our relationship with the strip club looks more like that of an employee. But if you talk to most strippers, we don't actually want to be classified as employees because that's a more complicated relationship. But we are currently misclassified because even though our contracts look like we are independent contractors, we actually are treated like employees. So first of all, we pay a house fee, which in Philadelphia, house fees range from $20 to $80, typically, depending on the size of the club and where you work. We are basically paying to lease that space. We pay to actually be on that stage. And we pay a lot of fees. It's very, very expensive to work at a strip club. We also pay the DJs, which if you work more than one shift, you have to pay the next DJ also, so we are paying $10 to $20 per DJ, and I will tell you more about that relationship also, because that can be a very complicated one. We also pay for house mom, which she provides typically cosmetics, snacks for us. Whether you use those services or not, you have to pay them. That's also another $15. This is every night, by the way. And then we also have sales cuts. So typically a dance is about $20. The club takes typically a quarter of what we get for each dance or time sold in private rooms. There's also a thing called funny money, which if you didn't come to the club with cash, you have to buy cash from the club, like Delilah's dollars or cheerleaders' dollars, and then when we turn that in, it's kind of like Monopoly money. At the end of the night, the club also takes a cut from that. So it's racking up, isn't it? You see all these numbers? So what are we angry about? So that we're independent contractors. We do have some freedom that we exercise by being part of that model. So there's a lot of things to be angry about. Let me tell you, as independent contractors, we do not have protections against these things. Harassment, racist and discriminatory hiring practices, and we don't get workers' comp. Workplace safety is a huge issue. It's very dangerous working in clubs for many reasons. There's a lot of ways you can get hurt being a pole dancer, a lot of ways you can get hurt. So back to this independent contractor thing, it's a question. Because even though our contracts we are typically independent contractors, that's not actually what is happening most of the times in the club. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how our relationship actually looks like that of an employee. We have to pay a lot of fees, and there's a lot of rules. So a lot of dancers, if you actually talk to them, don't want to be employees because if you look at what's happening in other clubs that have employed that model where dancers are employees, they have a lot of control over dancers, like a lot. You can do things like force them to entertain every customer and set their times, like their shifts. And there's a lot of rules and fines involved with being a dancer as an employee or independent contractor. It's worse as an employee, but as an independent contractor, we still deal with these things. So schedules. As an independent contractor, the clubs are not supposed to be able to tell you when you can work, but they still will ask you to hand in schedules or require you to hand in schedules and be like, all right, you have to work a Monday, you have to work a weekend. They're not supposed to be able to tell you to do that, but they will. And this is every club I've worked at. They will fine you for missing stage, like in the rotation, they'll fine you for arriving late, they'll fine you for if you want to leave early or if you try to call off, which I don't owe you shit because I don't have to hand you a schedule, but they will still ask you to handle a schedule and you will still have to pay fees if you try to do any of those things. They also will tell you what you can do on stage, which I'm leasing that stage space, so they're not supposed to be able to tell me what I can do on stage, but they still will tell you what you can do as stage shows, and I know because I pushed it because I'm a weirdo, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna wear weird shit and do whatever I want. And they're like, no, you can't. Even though I'm not hurting anyone or doing anything illegal. Also, costume requirements. They'll tell you you have to change a certain amount of times or what you have to wear on certain days. This isn't really a legal issue, but it's just annoying. Like, they'll bully you out of your fucking like lunch money. These DJs, they'll be like, well, that bitch, this is like fucking a busy floor. You should be paying me more than the typical stage payout. So DJs will do all they have to do to get your money also. So this model started in the late 80s. Before that, dancers actually were paid a wage. And then in the 80s, we changed over to this model of independent contractors for strippers. And in the over into the 90s, it became just unanimous across the country. People are like, well, why don't you unionize? Well, because we would have to be employees first, and most dancers do not want to be employees because of the fact that most of us do this job because we are able to kind of sort of make our own scheduling, and if we become employees, then the clubs can set our schedules, can even further set our rates, tell us when we have to be there, and it becomes more complicated. So I think that fuck unionizing, we should just open our own clubs. Yeah. I think is the future of strip clubs in Philadelphia. I don't think anyone wants to unionize or actually become employees because that's actually more problematic. Because we want clubs that are accountable, safe, sane, innovative. This shit is stuck in 1985. If you've ever been in a strip club in Philly, they're still playing girls, girls, girls. But the shit is tired, like old white man basic ass fantasy. So we have to change that. We are Dancers USA, Soldiers of Pole, that you can tune into to find out what's going on with strippers in Philadelphia and around the country. Resources for knowing your rights, and also Soldiers of Pole, that's California right now is experiencing a labor rights movement with strippers, and it's going really badly because they force all the clubs to to treat their dancers as employees, and the dancers are really suffering, which is why we don't want to do that. And a lot of decisions are made for sex workers or strippers without our input, so that's why it's really important to be tuned into these things. Thank you for listening to me.